Hey guys, welcome back. Now, this month marks 10 years since my daughter, my firstborn, had surgery to correct craniosynostosis, and I want to make a video about it because when we were going through this, I was terrified as a parent, and on my blog over the years, I've had a blog post sharing a bit about the story that, our journey, and it has helped so many parents because it is a very scary thing. So I've pulled up the timeline of what happened and when, and I'm going to go through it and I'm going to talk about it and share it with you because I know it was scary and I feel like it was so good. I had been able to talk to a few people that had been on this journey and, kind of like completed the journey. And it was so nice to see kids living full lives and everything was okay. So if you have never heard of this before, what it is there's a couple of different variations, but pretty much what happens is your child's soft spot grows closed too early. And that happened with my daughter. And so to fix it, usually what happens is they have surgery where the doctor cuts out a piece of the bone in their skull. It is terrifying. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story and how things went, and hopefully this can help some other parents out there. Okay, so first things first, let's just start right at birth. So my daughter was born 10 days overdue, and everything went fairly well. Nothing kind of concerning with her birth or anything, but we did notice kind of right off the bat that her head was kind of squished in instead of, just being more round. And originally, we thought, or the doctors told us, that part of the reason for that was because she actually came out with her fist right by her head. So babies, their skulls are kind of moldable and stuff, and so we just thought it'll kind of it'll fill out, and that it was just kind of squished because of the way she was born. We had zero indication that anything was wrong during actual pregnancy. I mean, I had a lot of ultrasounds because they thought she was small, but their due date was different than my due date, and she ended up being 7 pounds and 9 ounces, so she was perfectly fine. But it was just her head kind of right off the bat was always kind of a little bit squished in. And it wasn't until our 6-week appointment with the doctor that things kind of started to have a few red flags. So it was at this doctor's appointment that the doctors always feel for the baby's soft spot and stuff. And she was a little concerned because the soft spot was pretty much closed already at that point. And I think from what I remember, the soft spot is generally only closing at around 18 months is what's supposed to happen. So that was a concern. She was just going to keep an eye on it. And I think actually at that point she might have sent a referral in for a specialist appointment, but at least here in Canada, we have free healthcare, which is amazing, but things take a while. And so we didn't hear anything from that. Then when my daughter was about 5 months old, she had this bizarre, and I would say it didn't make any sense. She had a skin fold that kind of got eczema. It was in her knee, kind of behind her knee. It got infected. It just went from oh, that's dry skin to that's eczema to that's infected within 24 hours. And we had to go to the emergency room and they actually admitted her. And it was interesting. We were in the emergency room and we heard them calling up to the pediatric ward. And I remember the doctor hearing the conversation with the nurse on the ER ward and the doctor that was on the pediatrics ward, and I was it seems like it's someone we know. I thought it was a nurse that we knew or something, but it turns out the doctor was actually someone that I had taken family pictures for, I think the summer before, and had a pretty good relationship with. And so when we went on the pediatric ward, she had kind of followed my blog already, and she knew that we had been waiting to hear something about her head, I think, from what I remember. And you know what, she was while we're here, while we have her, she's going to be admitted for a few days to get this infection down, she needs IV for a few days, we're going to get this figured out. And so this sped up the process instead of waiting for a letter to come in the mail that I don't know how long that would have taken to come. She got the ball rolling there, and we actually saw a neurosurgeon sometime during our stay there. He came down with a couple of his residents or something and took a look at her head, and yeah, right away he was okay, we know what this is. We're gonna make an appointment and get the ball rolling. And so that was huge. That was such a blessing. It was totally a God thing. I say, it was a random like infection that she had, but like God planned it so that the ball could get rolling. I can see that totally now, and I love seeing his hand at work there. So this was, I think, beginning of February, if I remember correctly. The doctor got like some x-rays of her head and did all that right in the hospital, so that's great. And then we had an appointment booked with him for like the end of March, just to kind of like go over some things and like figure some more things out. So the x-ray results actually came back like inconclusive. He couldn't tell like one way or the other how things were going. So when we met him in March, we decided to do a follow-up, do a CT scan, check out her brain, because one thing that often happens with kids with this is their head stops growing, so their brain doesn't have room to grow, and it can cause like headaches and other issues like that. So we set up a CT scan to happen in May. If I remember correctly, it was actually on my husband's birthday. I think it was the last day of May, and we were getting a CT scan done to, yeah, just see how much room she had in her skull for her brain to develop, see if surgery was an option that we should pursue or if we should just let things go. So that's kind of what the CT scan was for. So when we got the results back for the CT scan, things were actually pretty positive. Her head was big enough that her brain had room to grow, but her head had grown quite a bit longer at this point than when we had seen the surgeon back in March. So even though we kind of still had the choice, it wasn't, you know, we didn't have to do it for the brain purposes, but so this was a purely cosmetic surgery. The surgeon highly recommended that we actually go ahead with it, and I was wrong before. We didn't have the CT scan on that date. On my husband's birth date, we had got the letter of when her surgery was going to be, and it was going to be July 11th. So that's right away here. This would be 10 years. Oh, that is a scary thing for a mother to get a letter saying, you know, this is the date your daughter's gonna have surgery, because it was pretty intensive. I clearly remember the night before her surgery. Oh my goodness, I'm totally gonna get emotional here. Because the surgery involves, what they do is they cut a zigzag incision from ear to ear, and they peel back, like I don't even understand how this works, because how do they do this? They peel back the skin a little bit so they can access the bone, and then they cut out a piece of bone on the top of the skull, and then they sew you back up, and then they just leave that like bone piece out so that the head can continue to grow around. So it can continue to grow around, and then eventually the skull is kind of like supposed to fuse back together closer to the time that it's supposed to. And I remember the night before, like just taking some time to honestly sit down and be like, okay, like she may not make it out of this. And that was really hard. It's like, yes, we trusted in the Lord. Yes, I believed like his will would be done. But like I really wanted it to be my will. And I don't even know why I'm getting emotional, because it turned out okay. But that was a scary night for sure. Okay, so the morning of the surgery, we had to be at the hospital at 9 a.m. I remember just kind of like hanging out with her there. We had the forms, and I remember reading it where it said that we talked about health coverage, and it said Government of Saskatchewan. And I had looked up to see how much this surgery cost, or like in my research to see other people's journeys, I had seen that this surgery can cost like, you know, $10,000 to $20,000. And this was our first child. We were young. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and I just remember being so grateful for our healthcare here in Canada, because this was a cosmetic surgery. It wouldn't have been covered by insurance in a lot of places. I know it wasn't. And we didn't have to worry about that. We didn't have to make this decision, like, should we go through with the surgery or not? Like, can we afford it or not? Like, one of the big reasons we wanted to do it was because we know kids are mean. And her head was already so, like, football shaped at the age of 9 months, and it would have continued to have grown that way. And kids are so mean. Life is hard enough looking fairly normal, never mind kind of having the choice to decide to have your kid, you know, continue to go this path when you could make the decision to help it out a little bit. It wasn't easy for sure, but I just remember being so grateful sitting there. Like, we didn't have to stress about it. other than just like the actual surgery itself, we didn't have to worry about the money, and that was such a huge blessing. When it came time for her to like start, you know, getting ready for the surgery, we were in this waiting room, and I remember sitting by this old lady that was obviously seemed to have like cancer or something like that. And Rika was just like smiling at her, like she had no idea what was going on. She hadn't eaten since like the night before because she had to like fast and all this, but she was doing so great, and she's like making this lady smile, and this lady was making her smile. And then I remember when they took her from me to go put her under, I don't know why, but we didn't even have the choice of staying with her, which is kind of good and like kind of sad, but whatever, it is what it is. But it's like handing my baby over to the nurse was so hard. And then we went to a waiting room, and my parents were there and Jared's parents were there, and like that's kind of when I broke down. That's kind of like when it all hit me, you know. Now I just have to like sit here and wait and pray, and I can't do anything else. Oh my goodness, I did not expect to get so emotional. Overall, the surgery actually ended up taking longer than they expected. I'm not really sure the reason for this. I don't even know if they told me, or if I just, you know, once they came out and said things went well, like, I don't know if I heard anything other than that. So originally though, what the doctor had said is kind of, we had two choices. We could either like flatten the back of her head and or cut out the piece of the bone or something. I don't remember exactly, but I do know that over time, like her head was never as long as it was at the beginning. So I don't know what he all did. He definitely like cut out a piece of the bone, but I feel like he somehow flattened the back of her head, which I also don't understand how it happens, because I can't understand this stuff. But like her head looked so good, except right off the bat. So I got to be there when she woke up, and I did not recognize my child. Like it had been what? I don't even know if I wrote down how long it took. I feel like it was maybe like 4 or 5 hours. I didn't recognize her. She was so swollen already, so they had a bandage over her head, and she was so swollen all over. At first I was like, oh, this is like someone else's kid, and then I realized that was my kid. So after she came to, she had a little bit of food, a little bit of water, and then eventually they moved us, I think, into like observation. Now I have to look at my notes because I totally don't remember a whole lot from these few days. I think we were only in observation one night, and like slowly she like continued to swell. Her one eye shut all the way, and she looked like she had been beat up. One thing, like I said, I didn't expect was her entire body to swell. Actually, none of the sleepers we had originally brought along even fit her. We had to like go a size up because all her limbs were just like chunky. Just like, I think it must be the fluid, right? Like it just, she couldn't fit into the sleepers we bought. So like the first day she didn't have any clothes on because we had nothing that fit. So she was so swollen to like this black eye. But man, she was adorable, and she like smiled. Like, oh man. Okay, now I got like a piece of toilet paper for wiping my eyes here. So I think we were in observation one day. So she had surgery Monday. We stayed in observation Monday night. We got no sleep. There was the poor guy who had been in an accident, and he just moaned and cried all night long, which is totally fine. I totally understand, but we got zero sleep, or at least I did. I don't know. I don't remember how much sleep Rika got. But then, so that was Monday. Tuesday we got moved to like a regular room. I think there was 4 beds in there, and I got to sleep beside her for the next few days. So what did I write that happened? Not much really happened for the first few days. There was like, her swelling slowly started to go down. By Thursday, both her eyes were starting to open back up, and that morning they released her from the hospital, which is always exciting because then you can go to your own bed and sleep. And then I remember Friday morning, when she woke up, like her eye was kind of a little bit more swollen than it had been Thursday night before. She went down, but I think if I remember correctly, that we went out, was it like Friday night or Saturday night with some friends, and like she was looking good. Maybe it was later than that, but kids can like recover from surgery so quickly. So when they had opened her skull, they had like shaved a part of her hair, like just like that patch down the middle, and I totally thought I would just like shave her entire head, but she didn't have a ton of hair anyway, so it worked out fine. Her hair like grew in fairly evenly quickly after. The one thing I didn't expect though, like I feel like I was preparing so hard for, you know, like the actual surgery and the stay in the hospital. What I didn't realize is that I didn't think about was sleepless nights afterwards. She really struggled to sleep at night afterwards. She would nap just fine, but there was some nights where I would just like put her in the car seat and we would go drive around and try to like get some sleep. Not me, I was driving, but like her. Also another thing that was hard was diaper changes. She would be fine with like lying down in her crib at nap time, but diaper changes, she really didn't like lying down for them, and it was like right after her surgery that kind of switched. So some reason that she didn't really like. Yeah, so there was some nights where like I would drive to our closest city, grab a donut at like midnight just to keep myself awake, and drive her home just so she could sleep a bit. She fell asleep in her like high chair so many times during that like first month, which is not her personality at all. I have some kids that do that, but that was not her personality. Like she was exhausted, but she just for some reason couldn't sleep at night. And then eventually, you know, things slowly got better and she started sleeping at night. We got family pictures taken a month after her surgery. Seriously, why so emotional? And they're just like my favorite picture ever. So as of the last time I checked, so she is almost 11. She'll be turning 11 in the fall. The last time I checked, her soft spot wasn't even quite all the way closed. The doctor said it might never close. I haven't looked honestly probably in the last 2 years. And it's just like a teeny tiny spot, but sometimes you can like still see her pulse in there, and apparently that's fine. It has gotten smaller. Like it took a long time for it to like start growing closed, and yeah, I'm not even sure if it is all the way, but apparently that's fine. So we had a check-in with the doctor, I think, you know, like a few times, and then I think when she was 1.5 years, I think that might have been the last time we like ever had an actual check-in with the surgeon again. Now whenever she goes to the doctor, whenever she sees her regular doctor, he'll still like look at her head sometimes. She, like, I don't think there's not really anything about her life that is different because of this. Most people know her for years and never even realize she has a scar. Like that's the benefit of being a girl versus being a boy, I guess. Like her hair can hide it, but there are times like her hair, there's one patch that the scar is a little thicker than others, and I can often see that, but like if you didn't know what it was, you might not realize it. And then just kind of depending how she does her hair, it can show a little bit more than others. But she has no like, I don't know, like no brain damage, no, the girl reads and reads and reads. There's no like real lasting effects. She is kind of grossed out by washing her own hair, like touching her head a bit, and I think that's fair. I think she'll probably get over that at some point, but it's fine. Yeah, so that was a little bit longer and more emotional than I was expecting, but I hope this helps someone out there if you have a child that has been diagnosed with this, or you know someone that is. It's a scary thing for sure, but our story has turned out really well, and let me know if I can be praying for you while you journey through this or something. I would love to hear from you.